Yeah.
I grew up in a shop, so I grew up working on cars.
Okay.
And I was so happy to see the art that I thought was dying coming back to life by having builders actually, using all the metalworking equipment and building stuff from scratch again, not just customizers buying stuff and bolting it on,
Right.
but actually hand fabricating items and showing art and restoring cars or bikes. It
Mm-hmm.
is art, and you can take as much liberty as you want with it,
That's
but you
right.
got to have style and you got to. I always go back and do this analogy. I grew up in the era restoring Delahaye's that had Fagoni, flashy coachwork, very flamboyant,
Oh.
and rebuilding all the chrome on them because they ground against the 1 foot high curbs and
Mm-hmm.
re-rolling all the fender panels and all that. And the guys that I learned from when I learned, they were in their 70s to 80s. They taught me how to lead. They taught me how to run a plenishing hammer, an English wheel, a deep throat shrinker, and how to fabricate parts. And I was like, is this going to be a dying art? Well, the art has really been taking off. And
Mm.
seeing you guys customize the bikes and Jesse James showing how to do it and all the early adopters. And then Boyd, when he got his show out, although I thought Boyd trying to build a car in a week, like overhauling and that is not reality.
It's a tricky deal, you know.
It's a tricky deal
It
to
is.
build something and actually go out and drive it and nut and bolt it. And I own 3 of Boyd's cars currently. All of them I took apart, put them
Redid
back
them.
together. Yeah, made sure that all the nuts and bolts are tight
Right.
and everything lined up. And
Mm-hmm.
that was just because first one came out of the oven, I think, a little too soon. And I was
Right.
like, all right, the next ones we're going to actually go
Get
through.
better. Yeah. Right.
But the art is what I go after.
Right.
And a car has to have the right proportions and be built the right way. And at our auctions, we're about selling all types of cars, resto mods, customs, but we take the same look at a car, whether we're selling a numbers matching car, because we look at who put it together, how was it put together, what all the components, and was it done in a workmanship type manner? Because
Right.
anybody can go and buy a hell of an engine and stick it in something, and you're going, yeah, those brakes and rear end are just going to instantly
Just
disintegrate.
explode.
Everything needs to be tied together.
Right.
Everything needs to be thought out when you do a build. What do you visualize it looking like, and how are you going to use it and drive it?
Yeah.
And that's our job as an auction company. When somebody says they're interested in something, first thing I ask them is, what are you going to use it for? I'm going to do
Right.
this with it. Yeah, you got the wrong
Yeah.
car.
You're not drag racing this thing. Right.
Or I just love the way a Hemi Cuda looks. And I love Hemi Cudas. I collect them.
Mm-hmm.
But some guy will buy one and drive it and go, this thing doesn't steer or stop for damn. And
Right.
I'll drive it around the block. It drives exactly the way it did
That's right.
1970
It's doing exactly what it did from day one.
from day one. That's
Yep.
why you may want a resto mod
Right.
if you really want to go out and drive it.
And you
If
know
you
what?
don't
It's
care.
funny that you say that too, because when I got into car, you know what I do for a living, right? We've known each other
Absolutely.
a long time, and I'm with you with the art side of things. I'm an artist over a bike builder, car builder, anything. It's art forward for me, and I've been fortunate to be able to work on some pretty amazing projects through the years. But when I got into cars, and I was not always into cars. I really got into them probably back in 2011 or 12. I started buying cars, and I was buying them as original as possible. So, I'm a customizer, but I fell in love with history in the way of cars. And the only way to really experience history, at least this has been my experience, is to drive an old car, right? Because the way it was in 37 and 36 and 41, you see what I mean? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
however it smelled and however it drive and however it didn't stop, right? And however it barely went, is what you got. It is what that man who drove that car, maybe a salesman's coupe, back in 36 experienced on a daily basis, and that's what I fell in love with. Of course, the form. I've had a lot of rare Hudsons. I had a 31 boat tail roadster. Most 30s Hudsons are kind of uncommon, and they're pretty art deco. And I had a 36 convertible, and I had a 36 pickup. I got into Hudsons like heavily. I'm like that. Once I start collecting an area, I go like completely out of my mind, and I hunt cars. And but I love originality. I really love originality because you experience history that way. And when I designed this car, I didn't want to take too much away from its original history. I wanted to respect the original design. And that's why when you talk about Delahaye's such an inspiration. Those cars are the most magnificent, flowing robes, beautiful cars you've ever seen. And so I just took a little inspiration from the Delahaye's and the Bugattis, and that Zephyr has everything you need anyway, except for a few things. And I feel like those fenders should have always came back. And I know that wouldn't have been practical for production, but aesthetically, I thought, man, this is a nice area to spend some time and get this thing to flow out. And then really the speed fin. And I modernized it inside. It's got air ride, but aesthetically, we did the suicide doors to make the fenders work. But aesthetically, that car is almost stock. I mean, it's got the stock engine. We souped up the carbs. I did the Zephyr scripted heads. I'm a purist when it comes to cars. So it was I almost found it a little difficult doing anything to the car, except for the fact that I was given an opportunity to put my twist on it for the first time. And after looking at these cars for so many years, these are the things that I decided should be done to it. And even that speed fin in the back. You see how simple that thing is? And it gives it so much speed. We used the original frame. We channeled it out. We lowered it. It's on air ride, but it's not laying on the ground. I like it to look like a car, not like whatever. It's just for my eye, I want to see a little bit more tire. I like it low. Those cars look like they're waiting for a flood from the factory because roads were not so great back in the day, So I think we lowered it just the right amount. The Dunkelblau, which is the dark blue paint, to me is the best. It's beautiful. It's a color. I love black, but black is just black. And we went with that kind of a mahogany whiskey. What's the word I'm looking for with the brown leather interior? So that combination, cognac. Yeah, my wife's saying cognac because she picked the interior. All right. And so we really wanted to just pay homage to the past and kind of bring it up to speed a little bit.
Well, it's certainly a piece of art. I appreciate that type of work. I love cars that somebody took the eye to look at how does it flow. And buying a car is a passion, and people that love this hobby do it because the passion, the camaraderie, and it is rolling art selling these cars. Not all of them are rolling art. Yours is. Some are more function over form. Yours is form over function.
I agree with that. And you're right. I mean, the motor, I didn't hop up the motor. You look in that car. We cleaned up the firewall. We did things. We got rid of like a lot of the wires that you don't want to see. But you look down in there and you got that 12-cylinder motor sitting in there on the original motor mounts. And I really love that about the car. It didn't need that much. And I do think that it's a very over-customized car. People they French it all out. They get rid of the handles. They get rid of all the trim. They chop the roof, which doesn't need to be chopped. And they over chop them so it looks like a pancake. It looks like someone dropped it on upside down. It really does. And these guys think it looks good. And I think you ruin the car. That's my feeling. I mean, the original design of that car is one of the best coupes of the 30s. So in fairness to my design, again, I had to pay respect to the original designers, which I believe is Grigori, right? I mean, that's the original designer is Grigori. I think that's how you say his name, because in the Zephyr Club, they rate these cars based on this Grigori rating, which is on a 100-point system. I've had a couple like 100-point cars in the past, so. And that's the nuances with where the stickers go and everything like that. I didn't pay as much attention to that as making sure those fenders were just right, the way they came back into the rear fenders and the way the suicide doors open up. I love the suicide doors, and I don't think there's another Zephyr out there with suicide doors like that. Because when you open them up, you get to see the interior from the front perspective of the car. So you get that leather and everything else. And I've always loved suicide doors, even on some original cars, some 36, I think a 36 Ford has suicide doors. There's a couple other ones out there. But I just took my years of experience of things I loved, and I go to all the concours. I judge at the concours. So I've seen some of the most spectacular cars you can ever imagine. So for the past 10 years, I've been seeing all these cars, and I finally got a chance to build kind of what I would consider my dream car, you know?
And this is it come to life.
This is the first stage. I think I want to build some more. I got some different ideas for some different cars. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's good. And you know, when I look at it, it's like my body of work. It's cars and bikes, but it's just design. It's just good design, good flowing lines, good proportions, and good fabrication. Because I've seen it all. You'd be surprised. I've seen some bike builders where I go, wow, that's a nice bike. And you get on top of it and you're like, oh my gosh, who did these welds? You know, like chicken, you know, scratch. So the fit and finish for me has always been extremely important. I'm like mental about how it looks and how it's done. And I think with this car, I think we hit it out of the park with this one. I really, you know, the form of this car, and I seen it on the cover of the magazine that you guys put out, and it just, man,
It's art.
it's art. It's moving when it's sitting still, and that's pretty much everything I do is along those lines. The flow and the motion it has when it's just sitting there it's just critically important to me, you know.
Well, so you said you started really buying cars and getting into it in 2010.
Yep.
Prior to that, you were strictly just into building the bikes with your dad.
Pretty much, yeah. You know, like old cars were just old cars. You know, I mean, I had cars. I had a Superformance Cobra, which was fun, really nice. Had a lot of fun with that. I had a Ford GT40, which I wish I never would have sold. I sold it too soon. One of those heartbreakers that got away. Now those cars are like 400,000, you know. And I bought it brand new with no stripes, and it was a really cool car. So I liked cars, but I just didn't understand old cars like in the 30s. And I think when I finally started, once I got bit by that bug, it was lights out for me, man. I love Art Deco. You know, a lot of guys like muscle. I'm not a muscle guy. Can I appreciate him? Yes. And I've had a couple. Matter of fact, I sold that 67 Super Snake in 2007 in Arizona. That was the last time I think I saw you. And so I
Your
appreciated
dad
that.
sold a Hemi, I believe.
What did he sell?
Or he had a GTX. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, he had a 60 Corvette convertible with a matching motorcycle, and we both sold our fastbacks. And
right.
yeah, and he wasn't real happy, but we don't have to get into that. He always wants more, and he always wants to sell cars for more than I get for mine, you know. But it was a great experience coming down there, and I got to tell you, the reason I went with you, other than our relationship and history, because obviously I could sell this place at other auctions. You guys do it the best. You guys do it the biggest, and you put it in a place. I feel like you're like the WWE of the auction world, and I mean that with all respect, because it's a show that people want to be a part of. It's exciting, it's living, and these other auction houses are great, but they don't do what you do. And I feel like when it was time, I said we got to go to Barrett Jackson with this thing, you know.
Well, thank you. And Palm Beach has got its own flavor down there. Ton of money has come into the area, but a ton of car people. South Florida is on fire for the just the amount of supercars and car shows. We're down there, and it's a car show or two every weekend day where we're actually just driving around, going to different car shows, supercar shows. People love cars down in South Florida, so it's got a real following to it. Much more than Los Angeles nowadays.
Really?
Really, South Florida.
It's a
is
different culture, right? I
It
feel like
is.
those supercars are big. I feel like Los Angeles is a little bit more of a mixed bag, and it's a lot of like the 30s chop cars and the hot rods and the 51 Mercs and things of that nature, right? Is that right?
It's across the board,
Yeah.
but it's being able to take the cars out and use them, and people appreciate them. And Cars and Coffee started in Southern California, so you can't take
Right.
anything away from them. But the camaraderie that I feel down in Florida, and everybody is just super psyched when you're driving a cool car out and seeing it when it's valet parked and everybody around it. And I sold a car to a customer, and I saw it at a restaurant. So went over. I was like, "That's got to be the car." And the owner came up, and we started talking. And he told me what he likes, and got a great bunch of cars, a lot of supercars, and he ended up buying Sammy Hagar's Law Ferrari because he
Oh,
just loved
nice.
the colors and the combination of the car. But these things are all organic by just going out and being with the car people. And that's what we try to bring into the auctions. And that is that it's not just an auction, it's a gathering of people that love cars, the passion, and the amount of buyers to cars comes because the cars are going up for sale, and you're the last person with your hand in the air. It's your car. It's not there for an appraisal. It is there to find a new home and another passionate person to care for it till it cycles back through.
Right. We're just here. We're just curators of these things for a short period of time, and then they move on. We're
They
just
move
stewards,
on.
right?
We are. I collect cars myself and restore cars and care for them very much because I love the history and I love, doing the research on them. We're
Me
doing
too.
a Bugatti right now. I just bought back one of my Delahaye's that I restored when I was 20 years old. So I can't
Wow.
wait to see what it looks like 45 years later. Painted it in lacquer and in the pictures, it looks gorgeous still. So I
Is
can't
it
wait
is
to
it still
see.
in the original? Because I know those Delahaye's go through some Delahaye's. They go through years of changes, and they'll redo the trim different. I've seen a lot of these cars where the original car doesn't look like the car today because it goes
Yes,
through different hands. So is it still your work on that car, or is
it
someone?
is.
Yeah.
It's exactly the way it was
Ah,
done. And the gentleman I bought it back from, I told him after I bought it, I go, I got a picture of that when my dad bought it. He went to buy a 53 Durham limousine and it was sitting on the lot. And I have the picture of it on the lot in the early 60s. I have a ton of pictures growing up with the car, and then I restored it when I was 19 and 20 years old, and then
wow.
we sold it. And then I went and got another Delahaye, a Fagoni Falashi, and restored it. And as I started to say, we're now restoring a Type 57 Bugatti in our shop here, and a 34 Cadillac that was my parents' first collector car.
Wow.
And my parents drove it from Michigan to Arizona. My mom drove the car all the
That's a
time.
great year.
Well,
34 and
it's a, it,
35 are great years for
oh,
Cadillac. They look
biplane
so good.
bumpers.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of Art Deco touches
Yep.
to it. 154-inch wheelbase. It's a
Fantastic.
big two-door coupe.
You really? Is that what it is? Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Oh, those cars are awesome. They're so big for a coupe.
Yes. And pictures of me in the back seat in the little jump seat in the back when I was a kid. So going down memory lane, restoring the car to take it to Pebble eventually, and the Bugatti's going to go to Pebble this year. So, I love that era of cars because I grew up with them with my dad and Tom Barrett, but I also love all the modern cars nowadays. So my collection's a little bit diverse in all sorts of different cars. I love the cars that are popping out today.
Oh,
You know,
yeah. Some
how long
fantastic.
we'll be making these kind of super fast cars. When I grew up in high school, I didn't think that this era would ever come because I graduated high school in 77.
Okay.
And, 74 to 77 were not great years for
No,
American
no.
cars.
Pretty horrible, actually. It's
They
after
were.
after that muscle car stretch.
Yeah. We hadn't figured out all the turbos and fuel injection and everything else that we could get performance. So I grew up collecting and driving old muscle cars, and they were just used cars back in the day, but had a lot of fun doing it. So my passion's sort of broad, and the main thing I love is when somebody has the passion and the art, and that's why I have gravitated to everybody that is had TV shows that show people how to do this,
Right.
what it's like, what's the passion behind it, and taking something that is a, a lot of work and turning into something that's a piece of art.
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
Yeah, and I think about that. So in the capacity of television, I look at some of these cars, like the one I'm getting ready to sell, but even like Boyd's cars and stuff. I mean, that stuff becomes exponentially more valuable over time just because of the provenance and because they have
Yes.
some kind of, history with the builder. Look at all the Barris cars. These cars are like, crazy. Even motorcycles, even some of Indian Larry's motorcycles sold pretty good for the level of notoriety that he had. Unfortunately, people have to be gone a lot of times for that stuff to really go crazy, but it always gets there. I mean, Von Dutch and, I look at all these guys as my predecessors. I look at all their stuff and I just think, wow, these guys they really made a mark. Even like Ed Roth,
Oh
with
yeah.
his mailbox trike and all that stuff. All that stuff is a big inspiration to me. And I look at, I'm 50 now, so I've been doing this like 25 years of television, and I look at my body of work differently than I did when I was a young guy just making stuff. I look back at it. I've tried to get back quite a few of my bikes through the years. I've gotten some of them back. I've been able to keep some of them, so I have a pretty large collection of my bikes from the show. But when I look at my body of work, it's very exclusive. I don't build anything past for large corporations or big charities. I don't really build for individuals. I don't floor plan stuff. It's commission only. So this car is part of a body of work that's pretty exclusive. There's not a lot of it out there. And the stuff that's out there is globally recognized, and we, Discovery for all those years really afforded us a global audience of 200 countries and territories and 90 languages. And that's pretty remarkable for
It is.
some upstate New York guys who really, when the show started, I didn't even like my picture taken, So what an amazing American, dream story. For just some guys up in upstate New York, the show hit at just the right time, and even though there was all the chaos and the family arguments, which really made the show unique, we had something to show for it. We built these great works of art, and we did it as a team, and we didn't always do it perfect, but we certainly we struck a chord with people, and I think that in the long run, there's a lot of staying power for us. Even now, the nostalgia for the show is off the charts because all these guys that grew up, we were all teenagers and 20s, mid 20s, and now they're all like me, 50 with kids, and people are settled in their careers, and so it's an interesting thing. Also, like you said, I feel like we showed people how to work with their hands and that it's okay, and we motivated. You can't imagine how many guys say, I do this because of your show. This is what I do for a living because of your show. This is, it's amazing how much inspiration we were able to put out there. And again, we were just being us. But in hindsight, I start to look at our body of work and I go, oh my gosh, this is even bigger than bikes or motorcycles or cars or any of that. We've made a mark,
You absolutely did. You made some names there, and I don't know if you knew this, but Von Dutch was one of our painters. I grew up with him as a kid. Spent a lot of time, more time with him than my mother liked.
Is that right?
He really was a bad influence.
I've heard a lot. I've heard a lot of things.
So he used to live here in Tempe. His shop was down on Curry, and he used to go to Minder Binders and have lunch there. And every day he'd pinstripe the door or something. I mean, the place was a Von Dutch archive, and learned a lot from him. And then when he left Arizona, he went to Movie World in California and started restoring a lot of Big Daddy Ed Roth's cars. And Big Daddy Ed Roth was actually over at Knott's Berry Farm, and that's where he ended up retiring and was painting all the rides. If you ever saw the rides back then, they had pinstriping on the rides. And that's where both these guys sort of ended up.
I met him one time. I brought the Black Widow back in 2002 to the Rat's Hole show in Daytona, and he was there. He was a little.
Cool.
He was. I guess his health wasn't great at the time, but it was like, maybe a couple years later he passed. But I did get to meet him, which was cool, and I got to be a part of his show. And his stuff is so cool. These guys are like the legends of what I do. I even think of Arlen Ness and how he goes way back, and what a theme builder. That guy was really laying the groundwork for a guy like myself, So I have such an appreciation for history, and it really translates. If you can see up in this corner, you see that tank up there?
Yes.
the Stars and Stripes.
Yep.
That's a Von Dutch painted gas tank. And I have in 1966, Look magazine did a whole spread on him painting that. I have all the photographs, every step
Wow.
of every inch of that tank. Can you hand me that tank? I want to just show him. It's really cool. And there's a story that goes with it that Peter Fonda saw this tank. Now, this is 66. It's signed. It says Reseda, California on it. And the story is that Peter Fonda saw this tank and liked it. And you can see how it might have been inspiration for a bike that everybody is familiar with, right?
Yep.
But you can see it's his Von Dutch, and then there's his signature. I don't know if you can see it, but
I can.
yeah,
I'm very familiar with it.
what a great tank, huh?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I sold a lot of Dutch's stuff over the years. I collect some of it. I have some of his tools that he engraved.
yeah,
I have it.
he was
One of his
something else.
paintings. You know, he
He-
did paintings, regular paintings. I have the square rainbow. So every time he was doing a new color, he would tape off something and he would put it in it. So, and it's really 3D when you look at it. He was a master. He also made guns
Yeah, I've seen
in
some
his
guns,
bus. He was
knives.
a master engraver.
Yep,
You know, when you have talent, you just have talent.
that's it.
And whether
Yeah,
it was painting, seeing him, now here's the trick to Dutch. He had to have at least one beer, but no more than six. Somewhere in between there, he had a straight hand. After that,
yes, that's right. That's right. It
before
started
that-
out shaky, it was smooth, and then it got shaky
then it
again.
got shaky
right?
later.
That's funny.
You had to hit that sweet spot. But having him do something freehand, and then you could trace it and flip it to the other side
was
of the car, and
perfect.
he'd do it freehand.
These guys
And it was spot on.
I've seen a few pinstripers that were very good, but I know he was a master. I mean, he was a machinist, right? I mean, he did
Yeah.
what didn't he do? He did everything. He literally could do anything. He was one of those guys that just had natural gifted talent, and he had his style, and he was, kind of prolific, I guess, right? I mean, you knew him, and that's like, wow, that's pretty neat.
Yeah. Yeah, knew him very well. Didn't understand the impact. I just like hanging out with him when he come to shop to paint and pinstripe and all that. And I just hung out, just trying to absorb it all and learn. And he would teach me on an old hood how to pull stripes and how to do different designs. And just learned a lot. Metalwork. He was actually great at metalwork. He hated doing it.
But he was good at it.
He was good at it
Yeah.
because he understood metallurgy. That's why he was such a great machinist. He knew it. It wasn't his favorite thing to do, but the paint and the guns, and those were some of his favorite things to do.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty crazy engraving. And if you ever get tired of any of that stuff, I buy a lot of that stuff. As you can see behind me, I'm a big fan of everything early transportation and Americana, just eclectic. I like a mix of stuff. I love
You got
signage.
the Pegasus behind
That's
you.
just one piece. I mean, if I spun you around, I'm just surrounded. I got the walls covered, and I collect very unique, mostly rarer stuff. I'm not, I've got over 10 years, I've kind of refined my collection. I like one-offs, even one-off signs, stuff you really don't see a lot of. And I like history. I like anything that has a big story. I'm a sucker for a story. I'll pay up for a good history. Oh boy, you get me hook, line, and sinker. And I do like a lot of research. I become, even if I don't buy something, if it's something that I'm interested in, I'll do a ton of research on it. Maybe I won't get it, or maybe whatever, but then I'll catalog that. So next time I see that item, I go, oh man, this is what that is, So I think history has got its hooks in me. I'd put it that way,
Oh, I appreciate that too. The story and the history behind the artifacts is what makes them what they are. It's who made it, how did they make it, and
Why
where-
did they make
where-
it? For who?
Why did they make it? For what journey was it supposed to go on, or what purpose was it supposed to have? And you look at all the great cars. It's a great designer behind it, and it may have. If you're lucky, the great designer has great engineering underneath the hood. And you
Right.
look at all the people, Harley Earl, all of his great cars that
Fantastic.
he designed. All of the main, the big three had great designers behind them.
Yep.
Virgil Exler, so what he did.
Yep, and those guys
With,
jumped around a little here and there too, and
oh yeah,
they had their influence and mixed and really cool stuff, man. Really,
yeah,
I love automotive history. It's so eclectic and it's so subjective. Even when you look into the past, even if you look at like the early airflows and stuff, how they were so far ahead of their, no one wanted them. I mean, no,
yeah,
these are beautiful cars. At the time, they were too advanced, you know. And
yeah,
you look at that history, and it's like it's the history of us as a country because
yeah.
automotive history is our history, you know.
It absolutely is. Look at the Tucker. He was
Oh,
so
what a
far ahead of the
fantastic
time that
car!
the big three had to crush him because he was going to kill him.
No. And then there's what? There's only like 41 of them. There's like a limited number, 20 something.
51 they
51
made.
is it?
I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
sure how many are
Yeah, yeah.
still in existence.
Yeah, I judge every year at Amelia, and they had a nice Tucker 2 years ago, I think. And it was fun to just get right up on that car. What a work of art, man.
Yep.
What a visionary guy to be able to put something like that together at that time, you know?
Yep. It's everything that happens around moving technology forward, what it takes to take the risk to have the vision and then make it happen. And you got to give it to the car companies back then. A lot of them rolled the dice when the bean counters may say no, but they took the chance, Corvette, things like that. When those
Sure.
first came out, well, this is not a four-door sedan. No, we're going for the sports car market.
That's right. It was impractical for all for
Impractical,
the bean counters purposes.
but look at where we are today. Thank
Right,
God
right.
people took chances.
Yeah, and even race history when you go way back, even like, Vanderbilt Cup stuff. I mean,
Hmm.
these cars when they were fast, they were selling, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. And so when you look at race history and what a critical role it played in how people bought cars and what they thought was good. I mean, this goes back to like when cars started, and it
Yep,
still today holds true, right? So it's interesting the moves that these companies make, and then the competitive nature between all these, even like the Ferraris and the Fords. You see all this stuff. There's a very competitive industry.
it absolutely is. And I think the movies throwing a light back on the great people like Carroll Shelby. I collect a lot of his cars,
Yeah.
and I think if it wasn't for Ford versus Ferrari, I don't think the general population would know what a risk taker he was,
Oh,
how much he fought against the bureaucracy inside of
he
Ford,
did.
what a maverick to
Maverick.
that was him. He was an
It's
absolute
funny.
maverick.
So when we did those Mustangs, he was a part of that. Carroll Shelby. He was a part of that company, and he was on our show. And I was able to spend about an hour and a half one day, just me and him, and we just talked. And he just told me like his whole life story in about an hour and a half, soup to nuts, racing with his overall, showing up at the races with his overalls on and chicken crap all over him, and just jump in the car, go, and then go right back to work. Really interesting guy. Even his whole South Africa thing, and he was breeding these different cows. And what we talk about like a Renaissance man. They don't even make people like that anymore. You know?
And it's amazing how many people I run into that know him from all different. When I went to his funeral, it was amazing the whole aviation side that came there, what a pilot he was, how he went through ground school, and he had such a knack for flying airplanes that he didn't end up going and fighting in the war. He ended up training other people how to fly airplanes.
Such an aptitude
That
for things.
he did, and a passion between, farming, being a rancher out
Mm-hmm.
in Texas and
Mm-hmm.
chickens and all of that. But then you look at his other businesses, chili. He got off into the chili deal and
Mm-hmm.
working between Ford and then Dodge, the father of the Viper, and working with Lee Iacocca on that, like he did back with the Mustang. And you just sit and you talk to him, and the stories he would tell you, the off-color ones were actually very hilarious
Yeah.
about the
He,
the antics that went on back in those days.
yeah.
But
He had a way with words and a great sense of humor.
he did, and miss him all the time. But he was one of those great people to be around. Had a great time with him and the coach when we sold his Cobra. We sold Sammy Hagar's GT500, and we were in my coach together, and Sammy and him were carrying on, and it was great just sitting back and watching these two guys. They're legends in their own worlds, bonding over Mustangs and 427s and
Right.
cars. And
Loving it.
those are days that you just look back on. Every time I talk to Sammy, he's like, man, when we sit there with Carroll, he's telling me it's all about you got that motor never ran right. And that's why it had to run at 7,000 RPM. And you put it in a street car. No wonder it's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's funny. That's great, man. That's great to hear that from the master. You know, where else would you
Yes.
get that information? You just wouldn't, you know?
No, it's great, Kevin, that you go back to the history of the cars and the people that took the chances to build them and did it for the right reasons because they loved the cars and the competitive spirit of America back then and wanting to go beat the world coming out of the war. We want to dominate, and
Yep.
I think Ford versus Ferrari really shed a light on how hard it was to go do that when
Sure.
Ferrari was so
Far
entrenched
and far ahead. So far ahead of the
and far
game.
ahead.
Yeah.
And their engines were really sophisticated
Yeah.
and pieces of art in themselves.
Yep.
But it took tenacity, and that's what I love seeing is people that have grit and tenacity. I think that's why people loved watching your show. You guys showed grit and tenacity.
Yeah. I think you're right. Especially Paul Sr., you know?
Yes, he reminds me a lot of my father.
Yeah, right. And I think that was the staying power. You know, that was that level of relatability you're talking about. I don't think I've ever met a person that didn't say your dad reminds me of my dad, right? Because
Yeah.
they're from that certain school that, for all intents and purposes, doesn't exist anymore. People aren't coming up behind those type of personalities so much. I don't see it. You know, I was just talking to my brother. It's like I think everybody's getting a little soft anymore in this country. You know, these guys think about it. You talk about these guys from the past. They're were they rough around the edges? Were they quite often inappropriate and things of that nature? Yes, but you kind of miss that mentality, that it's the tenacity. It's like it's part of the package, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And so I do really appreciate what we were able to do through the show for all those years and the impact it had on people. You know.
I think it shows if you have a dream, all it takes is effort and talent to make it happen.
Yep.
And if you got both of those,
You got a
it's up
lot,
to you.
right? You got something to work with, right?
Guys like Dutch had pure talent, and he definitely had tenacity. It takes the other part of it. You have business sense of how to monetize that.
A lot of people don't.
And a lot of people don't have the last one.
Especially creatives. You're right. And sometimes you even give up, especially with painters and people like that. They're very particular. They're very ornery, quite often hard to deal with, very eccentric. And so, if you can have the creativity and be a good business person and be relatable and be able to have conversations, that's like the trifecta, right? That's how you can manage to make your art your living. And
Yep.
Fortunately, by the grace of God, that's what I've been able to do. Make these beautiful works of art, but make money at it. Not just make them for people to enjoy, but to, buy things with, have a family, like have a good business throughout the years,
Well, it's good to see that you have a broader passion for this. And it's not just the bikes. I love that you've gotten into the cars, and obviously you like the stories and the memorabilia and the automobile. I love the gas tank. But
Isn't that great?
That's incredible.
Oh my gosh. Stars and Stripes.
Piece of work.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, and and my passion grows. I'm not, I'm 50, so, and I'm just learning still. I mean, there's so much to learn. And I have so many great older guys that have taught me so many things about the different areas that I'm passionate about. So if I have a question about things, I could go to a number of guys, and over time you start to just get more seasoned about all of it, right? You see something, you go, I know what that is, and I know who built that engine and who designed that car or whatever it is, right? Collectibles and everything else. So it's a fun journey, and and I will say, man, the collecting thing, as you well know, because you collect cars, you get bit by that bug, man. You're done. It's over. You can't walk away. I look at especially signs for me. I really love signs. I love advertising. You know, what I've really done through these years is people just look at it and go, "Oh, we love the bike," but I build marketing and advertising. I know what I'm doing. I build bikes for companies that don't need them. What they need is outside the box marketing. I've done that my entire career. Not one of these four, like the Yankees didn't need a bike. They needed some outside the box marketing, or MLB or Cadillac or Mercedes, AMG, like all these companies through these years. They didn't really need a motorcycle. They needed outside the box marketing. And we got them there because creatively we told the story of their brand or product with what we did. It was fully integrated. We didn't hold up the can and say this. We built the bike to look like the can. Do you know what I'm saying? So the storytelling aspect of things is really, I think, what makes it far reaching. Even for the show, like we built the fire bike, right? People didn't care about the motorcycle in a sense. They cared about the fireman that died in 9/11. You know, these are all the ways we've sent the message across. So our audience has been so much broader than motorcycle people. And for you know, as far as you were saying, like me with the mix, I'm a designer. My father, he rides motorcycles. He loves it. I ride a motorcycle once in a while, but I'm more about the design. And that's why I'm able to do the cars. And basically, anything you can throw my way, I have an eye for design. That's my gift. Gift is design, right? And I do it in the way of theme, right? So you like the car behind you, I could build a bike to match that car. And it would look like it got built at the same time as the car. You know, so it's a lot about the storytelling. You know, and in the same sense, as much as I love history, I look at how we've been able to make history and continue to do so, you know?
Well, I think people look back at your body of work very favorably, is my opinion.
Yeah, I appreciate
I
that.
think you were a trendsetter in a lot of ways, but you look back at the masters as to how they did stuff, and it's a blend.
It is. Yep. And, you know, I would say this too. The team has always been the only way to get there. And we've had some of the best teams through the years. So I can have an idea, but I can't do all the aspects of that idea. I can just toe the line. Okay. In the end game, it's my design, but I can't do it without my guys, you know, my sheet metal guys, my painters, engravers, machinists, all these guys come together to make one big, beautiful piece of art. And it is always about team. I'm telling you, even like my sheet metal guy, Brendan, he's out in California. Every time I have a project, I fly him. He's my only guy. That's it. Since I've been in business for myself, he's my only sheet metal guy, you know? So that has been like a big factor because me and him together are like Batman and Robin. You know, we can like accomplish anything once we go to work. And it's been a great ride so far. You know,
Did he roll some of the parts on the Zephyr to extend the fender?
this is the only project because he's in California. And when I started that thing, people were still not traveling because it's a couple-year project.
COVID.
Yeah, I just couldn't make that one happen. But for every single bike that you see around my showroom that I built since 2010 when I started Paul Jr. Designs, the motorcycle aspect of it, every single bike he's got his hands on. Every single bike he did the sheet metal. So all our build-off bikes, and we make a crack team, you know?
Well, one thing you mentioned, you built the 911 bike. So we are doing a charity car at Palm Beach for Tunnels to Towers, VIN 1 of a Dark Horse Mustang.
Nice.
And Frank Stiller will be there to sell that with us. So
Fantastic.
we've sold quite a few customized vehicles over the years for Tunnels to Towers, and I appreciate all the builders that over the time have built special vehicles to help our veterans and first responders, and you guys through the show have also done the same thing, so
Yeah.
commend you for that.
Yeah, thank you. That has always been near and dear to our hearts, working with first responders, military, police, firemen, you know, even like the military, right? I didn't go fight in the military. So my whole life, I always thought, well, you better prop these guys up. You didn't go over there and do it. You know, they're over there for you. You better do something to let them know how much you appreciate them and let everyone else out there know, hey, you better let these guys know how much you appreciate what they do to keep us free as a country. And it's a very real thing. And I think I think it's coming back a little bit more these days. I feel like patriotism is a critically important thing, and I'm starting to sense it again. It's like, okay, this is America, and I feel like I don't want to get way into it, but I think we're in a good place, and I think it's only going to get better.
Yeah. Knock on wood.
Knock on wood, I know. Well, so what do we expect at this auction on the 26th of April? What are we looking at for the weekend? It's going to be a good rollout or what?
I think it'll be good. We're about 600 cars, all no reserve. What do we have? 5 different charity cars that we're selling. It's smaller than Scottsdale, so we normally do about 1,500 to 2,000 registered bidders. Scottsdale about 6,000, but it's still the same ratio of buyers. It is very much a party. People come to Palm Beach to have a good time. The auction in Scottsdale will go till 10, 11 o'clock at night. The auction there ends early, and we all go out and have fun because Palm Beach and the surrounding area is a good time.
Okay.
And Palm Beach has really matured, especially since Trump came into office down there. It's really been a catalyst for that area.
Okay.
A lot of corporations moving there. It's a fun area, great resorts, and great time. People, if they're watching the podcast, you should register to bid at barrett-jackson.com and come there in person because Palm Beach, Florida, that time of year is just a kick.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you, when we were out there, I think when we were out at the one where we sold our cars, I think that was when Carroll Shelby's Cobra sold for $5 million for a charity, if I'm not mistaken. That was going way back.
It is. So that was same year. And yeah, we've sold that car 3 times now.
Wow.
And Carroll is a part of our family.
Yeah.
08, we made Barrett Jackson edition Shelbys. We made 100 of them with Carroll and Ford.
Wow.
I've collected 5 of those because I just think they're just a neat piece done in Barrett Jackson colors and one-off cars. So
cool.
The South Florida one is a lot like Scottsdale. Now, when you were there, it was in the tent. Now it's almost doubled in size. It's 1.2 million square feet under roof. 0.8 of a mile from the front entrance to the end of the tent.
Yeah, I remember being overwhelmed with the size of it back then. I was like, what is this? It's like the greatest show on earth right here, you know?
It's doubled in size,
wow.
Scottsdale.
That's amazing.
So the good thing and the bad thing about Scottsdale, it's immense. It's a lot of walking, and it's 2,000 cars.
Right.
So you sort of, it's, which tent do you want to go look at?
Right.
We had to write an app just to tell you how to go find all the cars. Palm Beach is a little smaller, a little bit more intimate, but has the same excitement in the auction arena. And I know people will love you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. They're my people down there, down south. And I thought this would be a good one for that because, Arizona's the big one, but I feel like maybe the car gets a little bit more attention in this arena. And
bingo. You are the feature car here.
Yeah, that's good. That's what we wanted.
One of 50 in a row that are all $500,000 cars.
Yeah. Okay.
And, I've had that same theory. Steve Davis, our president, who lays out the dockets, I put a car in years ago, and then I get the catalog, and I'm like, put it where you think it's good. I'm like, I'm flipping through Friday. I'm looking through Saturday. I go back. I'm like, I'm on Wednesday. He goes, yes, you are the feature car of Wednesday. I'm like, it sounds good when you say it. Broke a world record because it was the car of the day, and everybody went to the car, and that record stood for years.
Wow.
So whether I would have put it on Saturday, I don't know if it would have got that.
Right.
Wow, because it would have been just another Shelby, but it was a 4-speed Hertz car, so it was a rare car.
Right.
And
you made the right decision.
He made the decision.
Yeah, he made it for you.
Credit
right.
him with that.
Okay, fair enough.
At first, I was like,
Yeah.
But
wow.
Your car, that's why we put it on the cover. We have Ford GTs and other cars, but they're production cars, and we put 4 GTs on the cover before.
Right.
Yours is a piece of art. The photography is
Yeah,
spectacular.
you did a great job.
And when they ran the cover by me, I was like,
Yep.
that's it.
Good. I'm glad it worked out this way. And this was kind of we were really only like a month and a half ago that we started talking. Not even, I don't
Yes.
think. This was pretty quick, but nowadays you can move like that. You don't have to be so far out.
digital.
Look, we're doing a podcast about it. You guys got it out there and to everybody immediately. We got it shot within a week. And so we were able to move pretty quick, and I was able to get the article done. And I'm going to have a Saturday spot, which I think is going to be cool. And it's my lot number 719. And I think I like the number.
Well, hang out all day. You'll be my guest. And as always, you need anything. And everybody should come and join us there, because it really is a fun party at Barrett Jackson down there, and a great nightlife to go out and hit the town afterwards.
Cool. That's an invitation then, huh?
It's an invitation.
All right. I'll take it. We'll see you there.
All right. Thank you. This has been absolutely a pleasure.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate your conversation. I appreciate seeing you again, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right. Look forward to it.
All right. Thanks, Craig.
Bye.